For decades, there was this one case that was just one of America's most haunting mysteries. It's the story of a murdered child who had no name, a mystery that, honestly, became part of a city's identity. Today, we're going to dive into that decades-long search for answers and the really complex legacy that got left behind when those answers, well, when they finally came.
Think about that for a second. 65 years. For 65 years, a young boy who was found, just discarded in a box in Philadelphia, was a ghost. His only name was America's unknown child. 65 years without a story, without a real name. Now, the Saturday Evening Post asked this question decades ago, and it hits right at the heart of it, doesn't it? How can a child just vanish, his entire existence practically erased by the person who killed him? It's a question that haunted everyone involved for a lifetime.
So, to really get how they finally gave him his name back, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, to that grim discovery that kicked off a 65-year mystery.
And the scene, it was just horrific. The boy, they figured he was maybe between 4 and 6 years old, was found naked, wrapped up in this old plaid blanket, and stuffed inside a flimsy cardboard box. He was severely malnourished, and he'd been beaten to death. I mean, it was a crime that shocked the city to its absolute core, and one that generations of detectives would just refuse to let go of.
The thing is, every clue they found seemed promising, but every single one of them just led to a dead end. The box? They traced it to a local JCPenney, but thousands were sold for cash, so no records. A custom-made cap was found nearby, and the maker even remembered it, but she couldn't identify the guy who bought it. And get this, the police printed 400,000 flyers with the boy's picture. They even put it in every single gas bill in the city, and not one person came forward. It was like he had just never existed.
And, this investigation was absolutely massive, relentless. Detectives chased down every theory you could possibly imagine. Was he from the foster home nearby? Nope, they checked. All the kids were accounted for. Was he maybe a Hungarian refugee? That lead went cold too. At one point, a woman even claimed her abusive mother bought and killed him, but investigators looked into it and eventually ruled her story out. Every single promising path just hit a brick wall.
So for decades, the case just sat there, cold, passed down from one generation of detectives to the next. But then, science, modern technology, it offered this tiny glimmer of hope. It was a kind of technology that would finally give this little boy his name back. Okay, so this is how they did it. And it's just incredible. They exhumed his body back in 2019, and it took forensic scientists 2.5 years just to get enough usable DNA out of a single tooth. That's how degraded it was. Then they used that profile for what's called forensic genetic genealogy, which is basically like building a massive family tree with DNA. They uploaded it to a public database, and boom, they got a hit, a distant cousin. And from that one single match, these amazing genealogists worked backward, piece by piece, building this enormous family tree that eventually led police right to his mother and, with a court order, to his birth certificate.
And just like that, after 65 years, America's unknown child had a name: Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born January 13, 1953. He was just 4 years old when he was murdered.
And this is the part that really gets you. In January 2023, they dedicated a new gravestone at his resting place, finally with his name and his picture on it. It was a day to give Joseph back not just his identity, but a piece of his humanity.
But the second his name was announced, a whole different story started to unfold. A really modern problem exploded online, creating this collision between the official investigation and, the Wild West of internet speculation.
So you have this immediate clash, right? On one side, you have the police carefully trying to solve an active murder case, trying to protect Joseph's living siblings. But on the other side, you had online sleuths with a very different goal. They just wanted to speculate, spread theories that weren't verified, and basically engage in what one of the actual genealogists on the case called true crime nutballery. And the fallout was instant, and it was ugly. With just a last name and a neighborhood, internet detectives went to work and identified people they thought were Joseph's relatives. These people, many of whom were born years after Joseph died, were doxxed. Their private info was blasted all over the internet, and they were harassed relentlessly. Someone even went onto the Find a Grave website and edited the pages of a man they theorized was the father, adding Joseph as a son, which is basically accusing them of murder in a public forum.
And don't just take my word for it.
Listen to what the family's lawyer had to say. He said Joseph's living half-siblings were being attacked in every possible social media outlet, suggesting the most awful of things, all of which are baseless. These are people who never even knew Joseph existed, and suddenly their lives were turned upside down by these horrible, false accusations.
So that brings us to where this case is today. We have a name, which is a monumental, incredible achievement. But we don't have justice. Not yet.
This is still the big one, the central, unanswered question. Figuring out who Joseph was, that was a huge piece of the puzzle. But his murder is still a very active and open investigation. We know his parents are both deceased, but investigators are still hopeful that someone out there, maybe an old neighbor, a family friend who's now in their 70s or 80s, will remember something, anything, and finally come forward.
And that really leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? The way the internet just exploded around Joseph's case, it kind of forces us to ask, when we consume true crime as entertainment, what is our responsibility to the real people, the victims, and their living families, who are still caught up in all of this? Where do we draw the line between curiosity that might actually help and speculation that just harms?
In the end, this is the journey. From a nameless grave marked America's unknown child to a headstone that finally has a name, a face, and a life, no matter how short. Joseph Augustus Zarelli isn't unknown anymore. The search now, it isn't for his identity, it's for his justice.